The emergency alarm screamed through the council chambers like a dying star. Ambassador Jiho sat perfectly still in his chair, while the alien delegates around him erupted into chaos. His dark eyes tracked the holographic display that materialized above the center table, showing a blue water world surrounded by dozens of hostile ships. The planet was Vela Prime, home to the Valan people. Jiho had been Earth's representative to the Galactic Council for 3 years now. In that time, he learned that most species in the galaxy talked endlessly, but did very little. They debated. They formed committees. They discussed possibilities and probabilities. Meanwhile, real problems went unsolved, and real people suffered. The distress message played for everyone to hear. The voice belonged to Delegate Sora, the Velan representative. Her words trembled with fear. The Krath Dominion has invaded our system. They demand our surrender. Our shields will fail in 4 days. We have nowhere to run. Please, we beg the Council for help. We have families, children. We are not warriors. Please. High Chancellor Vex, the leader of the Torgothi species, raised his forearms for silence. His scales reflected the red emergency lights. We must respond with appropriate measures, he announced in his deep voice. The Korvax will calculate refugee transport capacity. The Rixians will attempt diplomatic contact with the Krath. The Torgothi can spare 3 medical vessels. Around the circular table, other delegates nodded and murmured their agreement. Each species offered something small. Token gestures. Nothing that would actually stop an invasion fleet. Nothing that would save millions of Velan lives. Jiho listened to it all without expression. He remembered his briefings about the Krath Dominion. They were conquerors. They had destroyed 17 civilizations in the last century alone. They did not negotiate. They did not show mercy. They took what they wanted and killed anyone who resisted. What about military intervention? Asked Delegate Mora from the Yalti species. Her voice was small, hesitant. Nobody answered her question. High Chancellor, Vex cleared his throat. The Council does not have a unified military force. Each member species maintains their own defense fleet for protection of their home systems. To assemble a combat force would take months of debate and planning. The Velans do not have months. So we do nothing? Mora's voice cracked with emotion. We let them die? We are doing what we can, Vex replied firmly. We will send aid, medical supplies, transport ships for refugees. Diplomatic channels will be opened. Jiho finally spoke. His voice was quiet but clear. Humanity will respond. The other delegates turned to look at him. Some nodded with approval. A few offered grateful smiles. They assumed he meant Earth would send a hospital ship, or perhaps some supply containers. Something helpful but ultimately meaningless against a war fleet. High Chancellor Vex inclined his head toward Jiho. The Council appreciates Earth's contribution. Please coordinate with the Torgothi medical convoy. Jiho did not correct their assumptions. He simply tapped his wrist communicator and sent a coded message. Back to Earth. The message contained only 3 words and a security code. Protocol Shepard. Authorization Alpha 1. After the session ended, Jiho walked through the curved corridors of Sanctuary Station. The massive orbital platform served as neutral ground for the 7 Council species. Through the transparent walls, he could see dozens of ships from different civilizations docked at the arms, extending from the central hub. His personal quarters were small but comfortable. Jiho poured himself water from Earth and sat by the window, looking out at the stars. Within hours, his communicator chimed with an incoming transmission. The face of Admiral Hayon appeared on the screen. Ambassador, Hayon said with a slight bow of his head. Protocol Shepard is active. 3rd Fleet is mobilizing now. 2nd Fleet will contribute additional assets. Expected departure in 48 hours. Jiho took a slow breath. The Council expects us to send medical aid. Thin smile crossed Hayon's face. We will send aid. Just not the kind they expect. How many ships? 73 combat vessels. 5 dreadnought carriers. 12 heavy cruisers. 18 destroyers. The rest are support and logistics. Jiho closed his eyes briefly. 73 warships. It was more firepower than most species had in their entire military. The galaxy is going to be shocked, Goodhen replied. Let them be shocked. Let them see what humanity does when innocent people cry for help. We are not like them, Jiho. We do not debate while children die. We act. After the transmission ended, Jiho stood and looked out at the stars again. He thought about Earth's history. Humans had spent thousands of years fighting each other. World wars, nuclear weapons, genocides. Humanity knew what evil looked like because they had stared into that darkness themselves. But humanity also knew redemption. They learned to be better. When Earth finally developed faster-than-light travel and encountered other intelligent species, they made a choice. Never again would they stand by while innocent people suffered. Never again would they let evil triumph because good people did nothing. The Galactic Council did not understand this yet. They saw humans as newcomers. Primitive, aggressive, but ultimately unimportant. They judged Earth by their own standards, by their own cautious and calculating nature. They were about to learn a hard lesson. Geo returned to his desk and began drafting reports. The Council would need to be informed about fleet movements through their space. He would file the proper requests for transit permission. He would follow all the diplomatic protocols. But he would not tell them the full truth until it was too late for them to interfere. Somewhere across the galaxy, the Velen people huddled in their underwater cities, watching their shields flicker and fade. They prayed for salvation that seemed impossible. Their government had called for help and received promises of medical supplies and transport ships. Not salvation. Just comfortable deaths or slavery, but in the cold black between the stars. 73 human warships were beginning their journey. Crews ran final checks on weapon systems. Marines loaded into drop pods. Fighter pilots climbed into cockpits. Admiral Haynes stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the countdown timer. The Valons had called for help. Humanity was answering. Not with thoughts and prayers. Not with token gestures. With everything they had. Commander Thexvel stood on the command deck of his warsphere and watched the planet below with satisfaction. Vela Prime was beautiful, he had to admit. The entire world was covered in vast oceans, with only a few small islands breaking the surface. Beneath those waters lived billions of Velens in their crystal cities. Soon those cities would belong to the Krath Dominion. Status report, Dexvel commanded. His second officer consulted the tactical display. Planetary shields at 40% strength. They continue to weaken. Another 3 days, and our bombardment cannons will have clear firing solutions. The Velen defense fleet was destroyed in the initial assault. No reinforcements detected. Thexvel nodded. It had been almost too easy. The Valens were artists and healers, not warriors. Their shields were strong, but they had no weapons to strike back with. They could only hide and hope. What about the Council? Thexvel asked. They issued the usual statements of concern. Diplomatic protests. Nothing of substance. Intelligence suggests they will send medical ships and refugee transports, but no military forces. Of course not. Thexvel's laugh was harsh. The Council species are cowards. They have forgotten what strength means. They talk and debate while we take what we want. Deep beneath the ocean's surface, Nari worked frantically at her station. Her webbed fingers flew across the holographic controls, rerouting power to reinforce the weakest sections of the shield grid. Sweat beaded on her smooth blue skin, despite the cool water around her. Section 12 is failing, someone shouted across the command center. Compensating, Nari called back. She pulled power from non-essential systems and channeled it to Section 12. The numbers stabilized, but barely. They were running out of options. Every day the Krath bombardment grew stronger. Every day their shields grew weaker. Her younger brother Doyon swam up beside her station. He worked with the evacuation coordinators, moving civilians to the deepest trenches where they might survive if the shields failed completely. How long do we have? Doyon asked quietly. Nari looked at her calculations. 3 days. Maybe 4 if we get lucky. The Council promised aid. Medical ships. They are sending us bandages while we bleed to death. Doyon touched her shoulder gently. Maybe someone will help. Nari wanted to believe him, but she could not find hope anywhere in her heart. The Krath had destroyed 17 civilizations. Entire species wiped out. The Council had done nothing to stop them before. Why would they start now? Across the galaxy on Earth, Admiral Han walked through the Luna naval yards with Captain Minho at his side. All around them, the greatest war fleet ever assembled by humanity was preparing for departure. The scale was staggering. The dreadnought carriers rose like floating cities. Each one stretched 3 kilometers from bow to stern and carried 200 fighter craft plus enough firepower to level a continent. The heavy cruisers looked small beside the carriers, but each one packed missile pods that could saturate an entire orbital sphere with smart munitions. All ships report ready status, Minho said. Crews are at 98% efficiency. Supplies loaded. Weapon systems checked and armed. Han stopped to watch a destroyer drift past the viewing window. Its hull bristled with railgun turrets and point defense clusters. What do you think the Krath will do when they see us coming? They will think we are insane, Minho replied with a slight smile. 73 ships to rescue a species we barely know. Most civilizations would send observers and file reports. We are sending enough force to conquer a star system. We are not there to conquer, Hyun said firmly. We are there to protect. There is a difference, Minho nodded. The crew understands. But sir, if I may ask, why this much force? Surely 24 ships would be enough to drive off the Krath. Haeon turned to face his captain. When humanity entered the galactic community, we made a choice. We decided what kind of species we would be. Not conquerors. Not merchants, protectors. When someone calls for help, we answer. And when we answer, we do it with everything we have. Overwhelming force, Minho said. Absolute commitment, Hyun corrected. If we send 20 ships and fail, those people die knowing help was too weak to save them. If we send everything and still fail, at least they die knowing we tried with all our strength. But we will not fail, Captain. The Krath chose to prey on the innocent. They are about to learn what happens when humanity says no. The fleet departed Luna in waves. First, the scout ships, fast destroyers that would map the route and ensure safe passage. Then the heavy cruisers and destroyers in formation. Finally, the 5 massive carriers, each surrounded by an escort screen, as they passed Mars. Earth's defense stations transmitted messages of support. Thousands of recorded messages from citizens wishing the fleet success. Children's drawings of starships defeating monsters. Prayers in 100 different languages. Hyun stood on the bridge of his flagship, the carrier Indomitable, and watched the stars blur as they entered faster-than-light travel. The journey would take for days through multiple warp gates. For days while the Velans held on with everything they had, back on Sanctuary Station. Ambassador Jiho received the transit requests from various gate stations along the fleet's route. Each request listed the number of human vessels passing through. The numbers were shocking. When the reports reached the council delegates, confusion spread quickly. High Chancellor Vex summoned Jiho to his office. The Torgothi leader sat behind his desk with several data tablets scattered in front of him. Ambassador Jiho, Vex said slowly, I have received troubling reports. Gate Station Epsilon reports 70 human warships passed through their sector. This seems excessive for a medical relief mission. Jiho met his gaze calmly. I never said we were sending a medical relief mission. I said humanity would respond. We are responding with a war fleet. Vex's voice rose. Do you understand the implications? The Krath Dominion will see this as an act of aggression. The Krath Dominion invaded a council member world without provocation, Jiho replied. That is aggression. We are simply defending our allies. The council did not authorize military action. Earth does not require the council's authorization to defend innocent people. Jiho stood and walked to the window. Hi, Chancellor, the Velans called for help. You offered bandages. We are offering salvation. Vex was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, uncertain. What have you done? Jiho smiled without humor. We have shown the galaxy what humanity does when evil comes calling. We do not debate. We do not calculate costs. We act. In the Velen system, Dexville received the first warnings from his long-range sensors. Something was coming. Multiple warp signatures detected at the edge of the system. His sensor officer looked confused. Commander, I am detecting 73 distinct ship signatures. They are military vessels. Configuration unknown. They are moving at high speed toward our position. Dexville felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. 73 ships. That was impossible. No council species had committed forces. His intelligence said only token aid was coming. Identify them, he ordered. The sensor officer worked frantically. Identification codes are human, sir. They are all human vessels. For the first time in 20 years of military service, Commander Dexville felt fear. The space at the edge of the Velen system tore open. Quantum energy rippled across the black as the first warp window materialized. A human destroyer emerged, sleek and deadly, its hull painted the dark gray of Earth's naval forces. Before the window could close, another opened beside it. Then another. Then another. Nari watched the sensor displays from the underwater command center, with tears streaming down her face. The numbers kept climbing. 5 ships. 10 ships. 20 ships. The system's automated sensors struggled to track them all as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. How many? Someone whispered. 73 confirmed, the sensor operator said, her voice shaking. All human. All military. Multiple capital ships detected. Doyen grabbed his sister's arm. They came. The humans actually came, aboard his warsphere. Commander Dexville stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The human fleet filled his screens. 5 massive carriers that dwarfed his largest vessels. Dozens of cruisers and destroyers arrayed in a formation that spoke of military precision and practiced coordination. This was not a hastily assembled rescue force. This was a battle fleet. Receiving transmission on all frequencies, his communications officer reported. It is in Galactic Common. Play it. Admiral Hyan's voice filled the bridge. Calm. Professional. Absolutely confident. This is Admiral Hyan of the United Earth Naval Forces, 3rd Fleet. The Velen people are under our protection. Krath vessels, you have entered Council space and attacked a sovereign world without provocation. You have one opportunity to withdraw peacefully. You have 10 minutes to begin your departure. This is your only warning. Dexville felt his rage building. These humans dared to threaten him. The Krath Dominion had conquered dozens of worlds. They had destroyed species that had mastered space travel before Earth even discovered fire. And now these newcomers, these primitive upstarts, thought they could simply order him to leave. Analysis of human vessels, Dexville demanded. His tactical officer worked quickly. Heavy armor plating. Advanced shield systems reading at levels above our own. Weapon signatures indicate railgun technology, missile systems, and directed energy weapons. But Commander, the tonnage suggests they cannot match our firepower. Our war spheres are larger and carry heavier bombardment cannons. Dexville smiled coldly. Size and firepower. That was all that mattered in void combat. The humans had numbers, but the Krath had power. Open a channel. When the connection was established, Dexville spoke with contempt dripping from every word. Human Admiral, you are interfering in Krath operations. We claim this world by right of conquest. Depart now, or you will share the Velen's fate. There was a pause. Then Hyan replied with that same calm voice. You have 9 minutes. Dexville cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. All war spheres, target the human capital ships. Fire at will. The Krath fleet opened fire. Plasma lances shot across the void, brilliant streams of superheated energy that could melt through meters of armor. The bolts struck the human shields and the space around the fleet lit up with impact flares. Nari watched from below, holding her breath. The displays showed the human ships absorbing the hits. Their shields flickered but held. No damage, no destruction. Just steady, unwavering presence. Human fleet is not returning fire. the Krath tactical officer reported. Their shields are holding. Strength is higher than projected. Dexville felt sweat forming on his scales. Increase firing rate. All weapons. The bombardment intensified. Every Krath vessel poured fire into the human formation. The void between the fleets became a storm of plasma and energy. Still the human ships held position. Still they did not fire back. Admiral Haynes stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the countdown timer. Time, he said quietly. 10 minutes have elapsed, Captain Minho confirmed. They made their choice. Haynes' voice was cold now, empty of mercy. All ships. Execute Battle Protocol Dragon. No quarter. No survivors. As the human fleet transformed. What had been a defensive formation became an instrument of destruction. The carriers launched fighters, 200 from each ship, 1,000 attack craft screaming across the void. The cruisers and destroyers spread out, moving with coordinated precision that looked almost like a dance. Then humanity opened fire. The railguns spoke first. Magnetic accelerators hurled slugs of dense metal at relativistic speeds. The projectiles crossed the distance in heartbeats and struck Krath warspheres with the force of small nuclear weapons. Armor that had withstood countless battles shattered. Hull sections tore open. Atmosphere vented into space. The missile pods fired next. Smart munitions that could think and adapt, choosing their targets and attack angles. They swarmed the Krath vessels like angry insects, too many to shoot down, too fast to evade. Each explosion tore chunks from the war spheres. The directed energy weapons carved through the chaos. Focus lasers that could cut a ship in half. Particle beams that turned armor into vapor. The Krath had never faced weapons like these. They had never fought an enemy who had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing their own kind. Warsphere Dominator is destroyed, the Krath tactical officer shouted. Conqueror is venting atmosphere. Subjugator has lost main power. Stared at his display in horror. In less than 5 minutes, half his fleet was crippled or destroyed. The humans were not just winning, they were dominating. Every shot found its mark. Every maneuver put them in optimal firing position. This was not a battle. This was an execution. Retreat. Vexful screamed. All ships, full retreat to the nearest jump point. But when his vessels turned to flee, they found human destroyers already in position, blocking every escape route. Waiting with weapons hot and targeting systems locked, Hyan's voice came over the open channel again. I gave you a chance. You chose poorly, now you face the consequences. The human fighters reached the Krath fleet and tore through the remaining war spheres like predators among prey. Their weapons were smaller, but no less deadly at close range. They targeted engines, weapon systems, shield generators. Any war sphere that still showed signs of offensive capability was systematically dismantled. From her command center beneath the waves, Nari watched in awe and terror. The humans were not just defending them. They were annihilating the Krath with clinical precision. There was no rage in their attacks, no hatred. Just cold, efficient destruction delivered by people who knew exactly what they were doing. The human fleet is repositioning, her sensor operator reported. They are forming a defensive perimeter around our planet. Doyon looked at the display showing the battlefield. Debris and wreckage drifted where the Krath war spheres had been. How long did that take? 23 minutes from first shot to last, someone answered in a hushed voice. 20-3 minutes. The Krath Dominion, conquerors of 17 civilizations, had been destroyed in less time than it took to eat a meal, and the human fleet had not lost a single ship. Some had taken damage. Shield generators showed stress. Armor plating was scarred, but every human vessel remained combat capable. Commander Thexfeld drifted in the wreckage of his command sphere, his survival suit the only thing keeping him alive. He watched through the transparent faceplate as human ships patrolled the debris field. They were searching for survivors, not to rescue them. To ensure none escaped to report what had happened here, a human destroyer passed close by. Dexful could see the name painted on its hull. Justice. How appropriate. He had thought the humans would be easy prey. soft and weak like the other council species. He had been so very wrong. The last thing Vexful saw was the glow of the destroyer's railgun, charging for one final shot. The silence after the battle felt heavier than the battle itself. Nari stood in the command center surrounded by her people, all of them staring at the displays showing the human fleet in orbit. The Krath were gone. Completely gone. 73 human warships now surrounded their world like protective guardians. Incoming transmission, the communications officer said quietly. From the human flagship. Nari straightened her uniform and accepted the call. Admiral Hain appeared on the screen. He looked tired, but his eyes were kind. This is Admiral Hune. I am requesting permission to send relief forces to the surface. We have medical personnel, engineers, and supplies. Your shield's held, but I imagine your people could use some help. Permission granted, Nari said, then found herself unable to say anything else. What words existed to thank someone for saving your entire species? Heian seemed to understand. No thanks necessary. We just did what anyone should do. Our first teams will arrive in 30 minutes. The transmission ended within the hour. Human shuttles began landing at designated points around Vila Prime. Each one carried supplies and personnel. Commander Yunji led the first wave of Marines. Not to occupy, but to provide security while the relief work began. Nari met Junji at the main landing platform in the capital city. The human commander was shorter than most Villans, with dark hair tied back and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She carried no visible weapons, but Nari had no doubt she was dangerous. Commander Yunji, Nari said formally. On behalf of all Villans, thank you. You saved us. Yunji's expression softened. Just doing our job. Now, let us help with the rest. Our engineers can assist with shield repairs. Medical teams are ready to treat any casualties from the siege. And we brought enough food supplies to last you 6 months while you recover. Why? The question burst from Nari before she could stop it. Why send so much? Why risk so many ships? We barely know each other. Earth and Vila have only traded a few times. Why would you do this for us? Yunji was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. My grandmother lived through a war on Earth. She used to tell me a story. When her city was burning, when enemies surrounded them, the world sent thoughts and prayers. Nice words. Empty gestures. Then one nation sent everything they had. Ships, soldiers, supplies, hope. They did not ask for payment. They did not demand anything in return. They just helped because it was right. She met Nari's eyes. My grandmother taught me that when someone's house is burning, you do not send sympathy. You send the fire department. With every truck they have, today your house was burning. So we sent everything. Over the following days, human teams worked alongside Velans to repair the damage from the siege. The humans were efficient and professional, but more than that, they were kind. They learned Velan names. They tried Velan food. They played with Velan children who were fascinated by these strange land-dwelling creatures. Doyen worked with a human engineering team led by a woman named Sumi. She showed him techniques for reinforcing shield grids that human scientists had developed. We had to get good at shields, Sumi explained. Earth spent a long time shooting at itself. We learned the hard way how to protect our cities. Fought wars against your own people? Doyen asked. Many wars? Terrible wars. Wars that nearly destroyed us. Sumi's face was sad. But we learned. We grew. We decided to be better. That is why we are here. We know what it is like to face extinction. We will not let it happen to others if we can prevent it. Back on Sanctuary Station, the council chambers buzzed with anxious conversation. Ambassador Jiho sat calmly while the other delegates argued around him. Some were grateful. Others were terrified. All of them were shocked. High Chancellor Vex finally called for order. Ambassador Jiho, the council requires explanation. Your fleet destroyed an entire Krath battle group. This will have severe political consequences. The Krath invaded a council member without provocation, Jiho replied evenly. They refused to withdraw when warned. They chose violence. My people responded appropriately. appropriately. Delegate Mora from the Yalti species looked stunned. You annihilated them in minutes. That level of military power, that precision, it is beyond anything we thought humans possessed. You thought we were weak, Jiho said simply. You thought we were new and untested? You made assumptions based on insufficient data. The Krath made the same mistake. They are now a cautionary tale. A Rixian delegate leaned forward. How many more fleets does Earth have? The question hung in the air. Every delegate wanted to know the answer. Jiho smiled slightly. Enough. That is not an answer, Vex protested. It is the only answer you need, Jiho said. Earth has enough military strength to protect our interests and defend our allies. We have no desire to conquer. No ambition for empire. But we will not stand by while innocents suffer. Is that clear enough? No one answered. They did not need to. The message was received. In the following weeks, everything changed in the galaxy. Species that had ignored Earth suddenly wanted trade agreements. Defense pacts were proposed. Diplomatic envoys arrived daily at Earth's embassy requesting meetings with human officials. The Krath Dominion withdrew behind their borders. Several worlds they had conquered saw the battle footage and realized their oppressors were not invincible. Rebellions sparked across Krath space. The Council did not intervene. Some lessons had to be learned the hard way. Admiral Hayan gave an interview to the Galactic News Network. The reporter, a crystalline being named Kara, asked the question everyone wanted answered. Admiral, why did Earth commit such overwhelming force? Many species are calling it excessive. Hyun looked directly at the camera. Humans learned a hard lesson in our history. Evil triumphs when good people do nothing. We watched genocides happen. We stood by while tyrants rose and innocents died. We told ourselves it was not our problem, that we could not make a difference. We were wrong. Paused, making sure his words were clear. We decided long ago that we would never make that mistake again. Not on Earth, not anywhere we can prevent it. When the Vallons called for help, the choice was simple. We could send token aid and feel good about ourselves while they died. Or we could send everything and actually save them. We chose to save them. But the cost, Kara pressed. Surely deploying that many ships is expensive. Do you know what is more expensive? Han's voice was firm. Living with the knowledge that you could have helped, but chose not to. Living with the faces of the dead in your memory, that cost never goes away. Money can be earned again. Ships can be built again. But a dead civilization stays dead forever. The interview was broadcast across Council space. It was translated into 200 languages. Billions watched it. Many wept. Some were inspired. Others were frightened. But no one could ignore it. Back on Vila Prime, Nari stood with Commander Yunji on a cliff overlooking the ocean. The human relief teams were preparing to depart. Their work was done. The shields were repaired. The cities were secured. Medical supplies were distributed. Food stores were full. You are leaving? Nari asked. Our job here is finished, Yunji said. You are safe now. The Krath will not return. And if anyone else tries to threaten you, well, they saw what happened to the last ones who tried. Will we see humans again? Yunji smiled. Of course. We are allies now. Real allies. Not just species who trade goods and make nice speeches. When you need us, we will be there. And we hope when we need you, you will be there for us. Nari felt tears forming. How can we ever repay this? You do not repay kindness, Yunji said gently. You pass it forward. Someday, somewhere, someone else will need help. When that day comes, remember what we did here? Remember that action matters more than words. Then do the same for them. The human fleet departed in the same precise formation they had arrived in. Nari watched them go, each ship a point of light ascending into the stars. They had come as strangers. They left as heroes. And the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Vela Prime. The galaxy was still adjusting to its new reality. The balance of power that had existed for centuries was gone. Replaced by something no one had predicted, Nar stood before the Galactic Council. no longer as a desperate survivor, but as a confident representative of a recovering civilization. The council chambers were full. Every delegate had come to hear her proposal. "Members of the council," Nari began, her voice steady and clear. "6 months ago, my people faced extinction. We called for help. Many of you responded with kind words and token gestures. But only one species responded with action. Only one species risked everything to save us. Only one species treated our crisis as their own." She activated a holographic display showing the memorial station her people had built at the edge of their system. It was a beautiful structure, all crystal and light, visible to any ship that entered Velen's space. This memorial stands as a reminder that words without action are meaningless, that true alliance means sacrifice, that compassion without courage accomplishes nothing. She looked around the chamber. "We propose that this memorial become a council monument, a place where all species can remember the day the galaxy changed, the day humanity showed us what we should have been all along." High Chancellor Vex was the first to rise and signal his approval. One by one, the other delegates followed. The vote was unanimous. The memorial would stand as a symbol for all council species. After the session ended, Vex approached Nari privately. "How are your people truly recovering?" "Better than we hoped," Nari said. "The humans taught us more than just shield repair. They taught us resilience, self-reliance. They could have stayed and protected us indefinitely. Instead, they showed us how to protect ourselves. That was the greatest gift." Ambassador Geo watched the exchange from across the room. In 6 months, his position in the council had transformed completely. Earth was no longer the newest member, the primitive newcomer. Now they were the species other civilizations looked to for guidance and protection. It was not a role humanity had sought, but it was one they accepted. Captain Minho stood on the bridge of the Indomitable as it patrolled near council space. The fleet had returned to regular duties, but everyone knew things were different now. Human ships were welcomed everywhere. Systems that had restricted access to their space now begged for human military presence. "Sir," receiving distress call from the Korvax system, the communications officer reported. "Pirate activity. 3 civilian transports under attack." "Anya?" Minho did not hesitate. "Set course. Maximum speed. Launch fighters as soon as we are in range." The response time was less than an hour. The pirates scattered the moment they detected human ships. They knew what humanity did to those who preyed on the innocent. Some lessons did not need to be taught twice. On Earth, in the military command center, Admiral Hayon reviewed reports from across the galaxy. Human fleet deployments, training exercises with allied species, joint defense protocols being established. It was exhausting work, but necessary. His assistant, a young officer named Taiwan, brought him the latest intelligence briefing. "Sir, we are detecting unusual activity at the edge of known space. Automated probes report contact with unknown machines. They appear to be harvesting resources from uninhabited systems." Hune studied the data. The machines were moving slowly but steadily toward council space. They were old, ancient even, probably remnants of some long-dead civilization. But they were still dangerous. How long before they reach populated systems? For months, at current speed. Begin mobilization protocols. Contact the council. We will need a coordinated response. Hune paused, thinking. And contact the Velens. They wanted to help. Here is their chance. In the rebuilt command center on Vila Prime, Nari received the message from Admiral Hayon. Her people were being asked to join a defensive fleet, to stand alongside humans and other council species against a new threat. Doyon stood beside her. Now the captain of one of the new Velen defense ships they had built with human assistance. "Are we ready for this?" "The humans were ready when we needed them," Nari said. "Now, it is our turn. We pass it forward, just like Commander Yunji said." The call went out across council space. A new threat was approaching. This time, the response was different. The council did not debate endlessly. They did not form committees to study the problem. They acted, human fleets mobilized. Velen ships joined the formation. Torgathy medical vessels prepared for casualties. Rixian scouts mapped approach vectors. Even the Korbaks, usually so cautious with their resources, committed their defense forces. The fleet that assembled was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Multiple species working together with a single purpose. It was not as powerful as the human fleet that saved Vela Prime, but it was united in a way Council had never been before. Ambassador Jiho stood in the observation deck of Sanctuary Station and watched the ships gather. High Chancellor Vex joined him at the window. "You changed everything," Vex said quietly. "When your fleet arrived at Vela Prime, you changed the entire galaxy." "We just did what was right," Jiho replied. "That is exactly my point." Vex's voice was thoughtful. "For centuries, the Council has operated on careful calculation. Risk versus reward. Cost versus benefit. We forgot that some things cannot be measured in those terms. Honor, compassion, the simple act of helping those who cannot help themselves. You reminded us. Will it last?" Jiho asked. "Or will the Council return to old habits when the immediate threat passes?" Vex was silent for a long moment. "I do not know, but I hope not. I hope we learned." Combined fleet met the ancient machines at the edge of Council space. The battle was hard. The machines were powerful and relentless, but the fleet was ready. Human ships provided the heavy firepower. Velan shields protected the formation. Torgathy medical teams treated the wounded. Rixian scouts found weaknesses in the machine formations. It was not perfect coordination. Mistakes were made. Ships were damaged. Lives were lost. But they won. Together, they won. After the battle, Captain Minho met with Doyen aboard the Indomitable. The young Velan captain looked exhausted but proud. "Your people fought well," Minho said. "We learned from the best," Doyen replied. "Though I hope we can learn the peaceful things too. Humans are good at war, but you are also good at art, music, science. I want to learn all of it."
Minho smiled.
"Then come to Earth. We will teach you." That is what allies do. Back on Vela Prime, children played in the rebuilt cities. They played games about the human fleet arriving to save them. They made drawings of Admiral Hain and Commander Yunji. They grew up knowing that the universe was vast and sometimes dangerous, but that there were people out there who would help when you needed them. Ambassador Jiho returned to his quarters after another long day of council sessions. His communicator showed a message from Admiral Haon. He opened it. "Jiho, I wanted you to know. The Council Defense Initiative passed. Multiple species are contributing ships and resources to a unified rapid response force. They are calling it Operation Guardian. Your work at the Council made this possible. Humanity did not just save one species. We changed how the entire galaxy thinks about mutual defense." High on out, Giho sat by his window and looked out at the stars. He thought about that day 6 months ago when the distress call came. He thought about the decision to activate Protocol Shepard. He thought about Admiral Hune and the fleet that appeared when everyone else sent. Thoughts and prayers. Humanity had entered the galactic community as newcomers, primitives, unknowns. Now, they were leaders, teachers, protectors, not through conquest or intimidation, but through the simple act of showing up when it mattered. The door chimed. Nari entered, her visit announced earlier. She looked different now. Stronger, more confident. "Ambassador, I wanted to thank you personally before I leave." "Where are you going?" "Earth," Nari said with a smile. "I have been accepted to study at your military academy. If my people are going to be true allies, we need to learn everything we can. Not just how to fight, but why you fight. What drives humanity to risk so much for others?" Jiho stood and extended his hand in the human gesture of greeting. Nari took it. "You will find your answers," he said, "and I think you will like what you discover." After she left, Jiho returned to the window. In the distance, he could see human ships on patrol, protectors of the peace, guardians of the innocent, warriors who fought not for conquest but for justice. The galaxy had thought humans would send aid. Token gestures. Empty compassion. They had been so wrong. Humanity sent everything, and in doing so, they showed the universe what it meant to truly care about something beyond yourself. "Hi, Chancellor." Vex had asked if it would last. Jiho did not know. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. The galaxy would never forget the day 73 human warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel and announced that evil would not go unchallenged, that innocent people would not die alone, that humanity stood ready to back up words with action. They thought humans would send aid. Instead, humanity sent hope, and hope, once given, could never be taken away.